Good afternoon and welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. I hope the week has gone well. They fly by, don't they? Let me start with macro thoughts because overshadowing the next 24 hours is Jackson Hole, obviously, but let me just talk through some themes. The most important currency, in my opinion, to watch is the Chinese, the dollar renminbi. And that's because of the feedback loop phenomenon I've spoken about before. We're at 709 and 25, 709.25. We've softened through 7. And the point is this, the renminbi is now the catalyst, and China has signaled it will be the shock absorber. And Xi Jinping was also signaling that he had control of the console via control of the renminbi. As I said at the end of last year, the direction of the dollar is therefore pivotal. I can't see how Powell can square this circle, and I think he's going to disavow the market of a number of Wizard of Oz level notions. Powell can't be too aggressive, as market participants may want as data does not support it. If he is too dovish, no one will believe the statements about a strong economy. Too hawkish, markets tank. I think essentially he's going to prove too hawkish, and that particularly will see a sharp rally in the dollar. JS Blockland, markets expect 3 more rate cuts by the Federal Reserve this year. I think that's a monster sell. We have, as I wrote on the 19th of August, witnessed a major flight to quality in 2019. Treasuries, gold, Japanese yen, Bitcoin are clocking the largest number of outsized rallies combined since at least 1990. 15th of July, I said this is indeed a quite incredible moment in monetary policy making, where the markets have led policymakers by the nose into a situation of voodoo economics, plain and simple. It is a Wizard of Oz world, and in June I called it a Wizard of Oz world when at last he grants an audience to all of them at once. He seems to be a disembodied voice. Eventually it is revealed that Oz is actually none of these things, but rather an ordinary man from Omaha, Nebraska, who has been using elaborate magic tricks and props to make himself seem great and powerful. 3rd of June, bond yields in tilt mode. This macro gale force level move, at that time it pulled US Treasuries to a 20-month low of 2.15%. We've gone subsequently all the way to 1.5%. In that article, I said rate markets in the US have now priced in close to 85 basis points cumulatively of easing by the end of 2020. And I was saying at that point that markets and prices exhibit patterns of correlation, and essentially my perspective is that it is the correlation that has exerted a pull effect on US yields, and that therefore the recessionary signaling of the yield curve should be discounted. Home thoughts, please reconsider the concept of happiness. This is from Reem_Laugh. This is how the Amazon looks right now. Devastating images. Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro blames the fires on NGOs. As I said in November 2015, I cannot help feeling we are like frogs in boiling water. We have created massive interference in the cosmic fine-tuning phenomenon. Brésil, les feux de forêt en Amazonie viront à la crise internationale, RFI. Scientists warn that losing another fifth of Brazil's Amazon will trigger the feedback loop known as dieback, in which the forest begins to dry out and burn in a cascading system collapse beyond the reach of any subsequent human intervention or regret. The feedback loop phenomenon. Siberia, one of the coldest places on Earth, is on fire. The Amazon, one of the wettest places on Earth, is on fire. This is not normal. This is a climate emergency. Greenpeace. This is a photograph of a serene sunrise taken by Andrew Lukasiewicz in aid of the Ngama Foundation. A stunning view of a sunrise over the Maasai Mara. 4 hot air balloons float quietly, each filled with observers full of awe. The asymmetrical distribution of the balloons add depth to the image. It's a beautiful image, and that took me into sunrises. This was a sunrise with a herd of elephants that we filmed at Finch Hattons. Have a look at it, it's fantastic. This is a photograph of the sunrises that tinted the clouds at Mount Kenya Safari Club. It was William Holden, who was the best man at Ronald Reagan's wedding to Nancy Davis, who founded the Mount Kenya Safari Club in Nanyuki in 1959. Then I went to something about Albert Camus. From the olive-strewn forum, one could see the village down below. Not a sound came from it. Wisps of smoke rose in the limpid air. The sea also lay silent, as if breathless, beneath the unending shower of cold, glittering light. From the Chenua, a distant cockcrow alone sang the fragile glory of the day. Across the ruins, as far as one could see, there were nothing but pitted stones and absinthe plants, trees and perfect columns in the transparence of the crystal air. It was as if the morning stood still, as if the sun had stopped for an immeasurable moment. In this light and silence, years of night and fury melted slowly away. I listened to an almost forgotten sound within myself, as if my heart had long been stopped and was now gently beginning to beat again. What a beautiful lyrical piece about the sunrise. This is the weather project from 2003, Olafur Eliasson. And this is another Les Tu Seconds Olafur Eliasson, another photograph of the same thing. We're waiting for a glance or a word, some acknowledgement that we are here, Jeet Thail Necropolis. The world is on fire, time is a bomb. 10,000 years are not enough when so much remains to be done. We made a day stop in Lewa last week. It is a special place, and if luck is with you, there is a chance of a big sky, a big vista, a wide-angle image. The remotes just have to be in the right place. What a photograph, what an extraordinary animal the giraffe is. And he's definitely showing off. Political reflection. Some people think he's playing chess, when actually his aides are trying to stop him from eating the pieces. Defense Secretary Esper tells Jen Griffin FNC testing previously banned ground-launched intermediate-range missile and releasing video of it meant to deter Chinese bad behavior. 27th of May, I said that the Chinese-US war, call it what you will, was about to turn ballistic. Korea and Japan getting into a shooting war for reasons no one really understands or saw coming would be peak 2019. Indeed. Epstein, the Maxwell connection by George Galloway. I first met Robert Maxwell when he was an enormously powerful and fiercely intimidating media mogul in the early 1980s. It was in the green room of the BBC's then flagship programme Question Time. "Ah, Mr. Galway," boomed Mr. Maxwell, "the PLO man," at which point he punched me so hard in the solar plexus I doubled over, tears in my eyes. At that time, George worked at the Private Eye, and then he apparently gave some information on Maxwell. Richard Ingram spent a night in the cells for refusing to name George as the source. It was soon obvious to Maxwell that it was me, and we began a war of attrition which lasted until his death. Inter alia, accused Maxwell of being a thief, of stealing his own employees' pension funds, of being an agent of the Israeli intelligence service Mossad, of betraying the whereabouts in London of the brave Israeli Jewish whistleblower Mordecai Vanunu, causing him to be kidnapped, drugged and delivered, his jaws wired like Hannibal Lecter, to ensure his silence to Israel, where he eventually served decades in solitary confinement and even now is not free to talk or travel. My allegations exploded like a nuclear bomb in the life of Robert Maxwell. On the front page of all 6 of his national newspapers, they called me a jackal of scavenging and the dung heap, a friend of Arab terrorists. Within weeks, the missing pensions were exposed. Maxwell was dead, having fallen, jumped, or been pushed off the back of his yacht, the Lady Gislan, off the Canary Islands, and Maxwell was given a full Israeli state funeral on the Mount of Olives. The fateful yacht was called the Lady Gislan because his daughter was his favourite child. Other daughters were available, and she was his favourite child for a reason. Of all her siblings, Ghislaine Maxwell was the one who was most like him. And I touched on this in my article over the weekend. I said the 21st century real time not only unfolds itself at the speed of light, but is full of mind-bending twists and turns. Jeffrey Epstein had a collection of eyeballs on his wall. The eyeballs make sense because Epstein was a watcher. Is it a coincidence that we all live in a watch and collect digital economy? Maybe, but we feast upon each other in the 21st century. He was, in the words of the New York Times, not closely monitored. Jeffrey Epstein was a spy in a society of spies. He was a collector in a collector's economy. He was a watcher, and he died while nobody was watching. I listened to Boris Johnson with Angela Merkel and with Emmanuel Macron, and as I said to they go, I think he charmed them both, as he charmed me when he was in Nairobi and we got into the discussion about the word syncretic, and he's proven to be very syncretic in the way he spoke both languages, so very charming. And if you want to watch the full statement, Boris and Emmanuel Macron, that link is on the wrap-ups. But, and I'm sorry to pour cold water on it because we saw a very big pop higher in sterling. All what this really means is that Merkel and Macron have challenged the UK government to come up with a solution to the Irish backstop issue, which would avert a no deal Brexit within the next 30 days. If May couldn't do it in 2 years, how is Boris expected to do it in 30 days? Therefore, I would say sell the pound, and actually it's been coming down, and I think it's going to come down more sharply, because it rallied 1% on Thursday after Macron said he was confident that the two sides could find something intelligent in 30 days to resolve the Brexit deadlock. Investors still need to be prepared for multiple risk scenarios, and I still think we haven't factored in a no-deal Brexit, which is where we're headed. Prime Minister Johnson is elected to take quite properly an impossible is nothing, can-do political posture, but the bottom line is, can he swing it? The key question is, can he self-eject Britain, which is where we're going, and I think he can. Can he be stopped? No, I don't think so, and that I think is the political calculation I'm making. Let's move on to the currency markets. Euro dollar 1070. I'm expecting a very big drop in the euro, frankly. Dollar index 98.331. I'm bullish about the dollar as I've been all year. Japanese yen 106.62, tricky currency. I think you've got to buy, a very big move on both sides. Swiss franc 0.9855. Clearly, the National Bank is intervening. The pound 122.03. Let's see how long we stay above 122. The Aussie finally beginning to turn low. No, it's 0.6757. India rupee soft 7.7625. South Korean won, which was the canary in the coal mine, 12.1087. Brazilian real firmly over 4.0696. Egyptian pound, after 150 basis point rate cut, still at 16.57. So that's good. South African rand, counter trend rebound, 15.193. Dollar index, I think a lift-off is imminent. Euro area PMI composite topped expectations, highest only since June 2019. PMI remains in easing territory where it has been since October 2018. If you think this number is strong, you're a muppet. I couldn't agree more. Euro dollar, this is a chart from T commodity, we're at 107.2. I think we're going to go below 110. Gold, as I said, it looks expensive, it looks a little bit tired. I know people scoop it up on any dip, but we're now at 14.96. I think we're going lower. Oil headed for its first back-to-back weekly gain since June. Crude oil, WTI, $54.42. Bitcoin bouncing around the 10,000 level. I think it's in a range actually, 9,400 to 10,900. We're currently at 10,200. And according to Bloomberg, it's at the lower limit of its GTI Vera band indicator, which measures up and down trends, potentially signaling that a short-term spike could be ahead. As I said on the 24th of June, Bitcoin, in my considered opinion, has never been about its utility. It hasn't got much, but all about its safe haven, non-correlated asset status. And then going back to the way it trades, it's an extreme example of this virus-style millennial behavior, which we see in the cryptocurrency markets, the Zeitgeist. And Bitcoin has captured the Zeitgeist of the time, like Beyond Meat. Is its defining spirit or its mood. Capturing the zeitgeist of the now is not an easy thing because we're living in a dizzyingly fluid moment. Gladwell stated ideas and products and messages and behaviors spread like viruses do. India rupee testing 71.80 under pressure, has had a bad August. Member of the Indian Monetary Policy Committee, estimates of economic growth in India have unfortunately been subject to a degree of flossinocinihylipification. And I haven't yet gone and looked it up, but apparently it is a real word. A kind of proxy war, News 24, Matt Bryden said the tensions and wider implications as Kenya was strongly backing its ally Nairobi while Ethiopia was siding with Mogadishu to remove him. Kenya sees Jubaland, a lush, relatively prosperous part of Somalia, as a buffer between it and Al-Shabaab. Observers say that for Kenya, having an ally in Jubaland is also key amid a spat in Mogadishu over maritime borders. Ethiopia also has troops there, but Abiy has renewed ties with Mogadishu, is now backing their stance. So what we now risk is a kind of proxy war. External contestation over Jubaland represents a risk to the stability of the region, not just to Somalia. That's Britam. Observing the success of mass protests in Algerian Khartoum against highly militarized regimes, Zimbabwe's MDC is planning a change in tactics, stepping up the pressure on President Emerson Mnangagwa's security state. 29th of July, I said Zimbabwe is a laboratory experiment with inflation last clocking 176%. I also said in that article there is a straw and camel's back moment, but predicting that moment is always a fool's errand. The Zimbabwe police was here. This is Harare, August 16, 2019. 21st of January, I was calling it a tipping point moment. and saying there's a correlation between high inflation and revolutionary conditions. Zimbabwe is a classic example. So it's, you know, it is a laboratory experiment. The people really are incredible, but at some point it's going to go. And that question, I think we're closer to it than ever before. Zambia's government says cornmeal prices of grave concern. Rising prices for cornmeal in Zambia, the result of distortion and a matter of grave concern. This is a clear case of price distortion by unscrupulous retailers who wish to enjoy abnormal profits at the expense of ordinary Zambians. South African all shares up 2.75% year-to-date, dollar rand 15.19. Egypt cuts rates for the first time in 6 months after inflation relief. Monetary Policy Committee reduced its benchmark deposit rate by 150 basis points and its lending rate to 15.25. Expects additional easing of up to 400 basis points by June next year. I must say, Al-Sisi, as I said before, I disagree with him on many things, particularly with his incarceration strategy, but he made bold moves on the economy. He made them early, devalued the currency early, took a brutal punch in the solar plexus, and is now reaping the dividend from its bold economic policy. They're growing above 6%. Egyptian pound did very well, 16.571, barely moved. EGX 30 up 9.95%. That's probably got a lot higher to go. Nigeria all share down 12.09% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange down 8.54% year to date. Bamburi Cement reported first half earnings per share rose 9.524%. Turnover was up 0.577%. Operating profit slumped 71.478%. Taxation, they had a credit of 370 million versus a debit of 323 million, which turned around the EPS and allowed it to eke out a year-on-year gain. Cash and cash equivalents down by 54.93%. Talking of a contracted cement market in Kenya, impacted by significant drop in cement uptake by the SGR project compared to the same time last year. In addition, Uganda operations impacted by the continuing closure of the Uganda-Rwanda border, which has rendered the Rwanda market inaccessible. Britam, East Africa, reported first half earnings per share up 50%. Gross earned premiums up 0.722%. Net unrealized fair value gains on financial assets up 52%. EPS up 50%. Cash and cash equivalents at the end of the year 6.165 billion shillings. No interim dividends. Safaricom Sitoyo says that 15 million Kenyan shillings move through M-Pesa every minute. That's why I say M-Pesa is the jewel in the crown. Nairobi all share up 7.02% year to date. NSE 20 down 12.06% year to date. And with that, wish you a great weekend. I'll be watching and hearing what Powell's going to try and pull out of his hat. I don't think he can. Therefore, I think markets are set to be disappointed. Thank you for stopping by.